welcome to Dateline New Haven and WNHH FM, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines, stories that make our community tick. Well, few people make our community tick more than Leslie Blatteau, the new president of the New Haven Federation of Teachers, and at the center of the story of our month, which is what is going on in our schools amid the Omicron surge. Leslie Blatteau, thank you so much for coming on Dateline New Haven. We always love to have you. Leslie,
Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Are you at home or are you at work office?
I'm at the union office. Yep.
The union office. Okay, so you just started in that union office on January 1st, correct?
Yep. Came over, had a transition meeting with Dave on the 31st, and then stepped into the role on January 1st, and first official day, January 3rd.
And David Sicarella was the president of the Teachers Union for 15 years, good guy. And you had a team of 31 people, a change coalition that made history, really, running as a team. You made a point when you had your publicity. It was never just one person in the picture. It was a team effort, very diverse, about bringing new energy and new vision to the Teachers Union. Big deal, made history. Then you stepped right back into history. So you worked on that thing for months, and no one had any idea that when you started your job, we would be in the midst of the biggest surge of COVID cases since the pandemic began with the Omicron virus. More people than ever are getting COVID. Most of them are getting less sick than they used to. It's less deadly, especially to boosted and vaccinated people. And that's created a mess, and you're right in the middle of it. How are you doing, and how are the teachers doing with the COVID surge?
Yeah, a great question. I've got many comments from people that this is the true baptism by fire here, stepping into this role as union president during this really stressful time. I'm doing okay. I have an amazing team here at the office. Vice President Pat DeLucia is extraordinary. He's longtime union leader. He understands the ins and outs of our school system, of how our union operates. So he and I hit the ground running, and the fact that I get to work with him is huge, first and foremost. So we're doing okay here. We're busy. We're willing to work hard. Teachers, on the other hand, are really feeling the stress of this. I mean, I'm getting messages from people who are out sick and are dealing with that, of trying to make sure that they're that people know that they're out, trying to make sure that their sick days will be protected because they're out on quarantine. So very specific things that I'm hearing from teachers who are stuck at home, and we want to make sure, of course, that their health and safety is protected, or their health is cared for first and foremost. But then we're dealing with teachers who are able to show up, who are doing their job plus half another job, or their job plus 2/4 of two other people's jobs. And of course, there's a spirit of we can pitch in, but we can't keep doing this. And I've raised this with you in interviews. People are just feeling uncertain of when they can get back to doing the jobs that they were hired to do. And this is a universal thing for all staff members in New Haven. Teachers represent the biggest group of employees in our district, so we're going to hear it the most from teachers. Principals are feeling it. Paraprofessionals have always felt it, because paras are the first to cover when teachers are out. This pre-COVID. Central office folks we know have stepped in. So everybody knows it. Everybody's feeling it. And we need short-term help to get through it, but then we need long-term answers so that we have more people in our school buildings to support the needs of our students.
Let's talk, Leslie Blatteau, about first short-term, then long-term. So yesterday, I was very interested in you and the union in Hampton. Got some short-term help. Maybe help's the wrong word, is one of the commenters said. It's really not about help. It was sort of remuneration. So the teachers who are covering for other teachers who are out during periods when they otherwise be preparing for their classes will get $32 an hour covering those classes as they work late at night. Your staff meeting is going to be remote because you're worried about how quickly it's spreading rather in person. I was interested about that. It seems like you have a good working relationship with the administration. It seems like your independent voice but you're not necessarily an automatically antagonistic or adversarial voice. Is that a fair way to put it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we're not in a position that we want to be antagonistic or adversarial right out the gate. I have to learn the lay of the land. I have good relationships with people in New Haven from having worked as a teacher for so long. And I think we share a lot of the concerns that central office has. You know, there might be a different level of urgency or a different level of frustration among the members of Local 933 for sure. But I think bringing concerns and trying to find solutions is something that I'm good at, and I want to keep doing it. I know this isn't we're not going to make everybody happy all the time, but I think we campaigned on the idea that we would use the Comer principles, which is no fault problem solving, and I meant it. I'm not here to point fingers. We're here to find solutions, and it's something that Dr. Tracy and her team is interested in as well. So for the time being, we can come to the table and find solutions. There might be plenty of agreement. There might be some disagreement, but I believe that we'll be able to work through it.
I guess this is something that, since Ronald Reagan was president, needs to be discussed again. It wasn't before. The point of having a union, again, it's not the fight or not the fight. It's the experiences of those people are different from other people. So even if you all have a similar goal, good education, safe workplace, teachers experience it differently, and they need a voice. They need a union that understands what they're going through and speaks up for them. So what's your longer term you're looking for? So short term, you got the pay while you're covering. You can't do it forever. You got the remote classes. What are you looking for?
Just to be clear, the pay while we're covering is in our contract anyway.
Oh, it is. Was it not happening?
Yeah. We're not typically asked to the extent that we're being asked right now. So it really has never been kind of triggered. But given how much we're getting asked to do this, it was sort of like, all right, let's make sure that this isn't just, oh, I'm helping out one day out of 7 months. People are continuing to have to help. Because as you heard Dr. Tracy last night
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, as we heard Dr. Tracy last night, 600 some people were out of the system on Wednesday. It's untenable.
So does that mean it should be shut down, or what do you think?
Yeah, we're still asking the state to consider 5 or 10 day flexibility to give us 5 or 10 days to count towards the 180 day if we were to go remote. We're still pushing the state on that. Of course, with that comes continuing to make sure that we have access to N95, KN95 masks. So I'm hearing from our stewards, most buildings have them. Some buildings haven't gotten their new shipment this week because we're told we can have one for 5 days.
And then you have to be careful not to fold it in your pocket.
Collaboration.
I've been noticing that you have to not fold it in your pocket if you have to make it last 5 days. Because every time you take on off the metal part that fits around your nose to make the whole point of having that KN95 so that you're sealing the air. Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, Fontana in his press conference
that's the emergency management chief, Rick Fontana, for the city, right?
Yep, he said put it in a brown paper bag, kind of what we were hearing the hospital workers have to do a year ago, right? So this is not, best practice, but it's our way of saying there aren't endless N95s. So what can we do to get through? All right, one every 5 days. Then if we're going on that low end, then we absolutely have to know that next Monday there's going to be a fresh one there. And we're hearing most buildings there are, some buildings there aren't. And this is where, I can pick up a phone to somebody on Dr. Tracy's team and say, what's going on? We need masks over here. And I trust that they're going to respond to that. So we want to continue advocacy for the masks, and more, and I'll get into that. But I think this isn't just a city thing. This is a state thing. We're hearing from Governor Lamont that, he absolutely wants 180 days in person, and he's providing the resources. We haven't seen resources come from the state yet. And, city folks can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the majority of resources that we've seen in New Haven have come from City of New Haven and New Haven Board of Ed, not from the state. So if the state wants us to remain in person, which, we're holding up our end and doing that, we got to get more support from the state, and we'll continue to push for that. Because if the masks don't show up, then why are we trusting the state when they say they're getting us the supplies that we need? I see Miguel Cardona's Facebook page. He says, we can stay safe in person if we have masks and tests. Well, we need more masks in New Haven. We're going to need more tests because already we're hearing they're getting rationed to some degree. I will say that it was reassuring to hear Maritza Bond and Mayor Elliker talk about the new test and stay policy instead of the screen and stay policy. That was reassuring last night. They're not following the state of Connecticut public health guidelines. Instead, they're taking them from Massachusetts, which is if people have been exposed, pardon me, if children have been exposed, they're going to test for the first 5 days after exposure, and be able to stay in school on a test and stay policy.
Let's just spell it out for people. So the state says if somebody what's the difference in what they're doing now versus what the rest of the state is doing, but same as Massachusetts?
Screen is just watch for symptoms.
Mm.
Test is actual rapid test for 5 days.
And who gets the rapid test? Someone who has symptoms?
If someone has symptoms, they automatically get a test, and we would encourage them to stay home until they have a confirmed negative
So
test.
under this, who's getting the rapid test that wouldn't get it under
Somebody
the
who had a
screen?
confirmed close contact.
Oh, so if they have confirmed close contact, okay. So
And
what we're doing different in
I'm
New
not a
Haven.
public health person, but I'm pretty sure I interpreted it
So
correctly.
what we're doing different from New
double check.
Haven copying masks is rather than just keeping an eye out for who has symptoms, if any student has had confirmed close contact with someone with COVID, they're going to get tested for a bunch of days. Is that what it is?
Test and stay.
Okay.
Yep,
Leslie
exactly. That's my
Blatteau,
understanding. And
serial testing. Okay, so Leslie Blatteau, teaching union president, is learning going on? So we talked to Hill House students who said that, and it's no rank, it's no knock on the administrators, no knock on the teachers. They said, with so many teachers out and people filling in, you can't even get subs, that people are just sitting in the cafeteria for half their day or more, working at their phones. Some students say, I'd still rather be in school. I want something to do. I want to be around people. I want to get the meal. But other people say, what's the point? Other people said, you're saying have the remote days count. Other people say do what some other districts did and just take it away from February or April vacation until the height of the surge passes. What do you think about that?
I think people value dedicated time off that we can count on. And I think that's why Dr. Tracy is reluctant to take days from April or February, because people will be frustrated when they're looking to that break to really disconnect, recharge. That if that's taken from us, we miss that opportunity. So I understand a reluctance there. We go till June 21st in New Haven, so it's hard to tack days on. People don't really want to be in school June 28th, June 29th. Whereas, I heard, what was it? Ansonia was able to tack a week on because they're finished in early June. So, calendars impact these decisions. I understand that. And as far as the question of is learning happening, I think, there are absolutely pockets where, thank goodness, teachers are remaining healthy. They have a critical mass of students in their class and they're able to continue on. And teachers are some of the best pivoters, reflectors, adjusters on planet Earth. So they can look out into the room, they know who's here, who's not here, what their goals are, and they can adjust as needed because that's the nature of our job. So I know there's some learning going on. And then I know, because I listen to students, that there's a concern of a lack of continuity, of a different sub every day, of their own anxiety and uncertainty, and the recognition that when you're afraid, it's hard to learn. The hormones that are surging through your body when you're fearful interfere with your ability to learn. So we also have to use the brain science here and know if anxiety is high, learning is going to be impacted, which is another reason why we thought, while remote is not ideal, at least giving us the flexibility to stay home and stay safe could be a tool in the larger toolkit of districts.
So can I give you my kumbaya take on what I would do if I were emperor and sultan and I got to say decide what'll happen? And we talk about flexibility. I felt from the beginning of COVID that this was an opportunity to take an unworkable problem into a real opportunity, which is what if you told the principal and the teachers at each school, the door's wide open. We're not going to have any standardized tests through this pandemic. We're not even going to keep all the well-intentioned and useful curriculum rules. And we're going to say that every teacher and student who wants to come to school can. And every teacher and student who wants to stay home can. And then every day, the teacher gets to see who's in school. It might mean combining kids from different grades. Just every day, the principal looks around and says, okay, Leslie, you have ninth and 10th grade social studies. We're going to combine them today and make sure each student gets it. And the teacher just gets to teach whatever she wants. And then the teachers who want to be home get another group of remote kids and only go on remote. Because my daughter's a public school teacher. And she said one of the hard things was when you're teaching to both remote and in person, it kind of is crazy. You're not connecting with people that way and your brain's working in two places. And just experiment and then link up with community groups, solar youth groups that know parks, and teach the kids a lot of outdoor learning about their parks, their neighborhoods, and make them neighborhood ambassadors, sort of like what some of the management teams in the summer. And then just see if we can change sort of what charter schools were for 5 minutes before it was co-opted by hedge funds from the AFT, and just say that we're going to just say the rules are off because they don't work in this environment, but we're going to come up with something better. And yeah, some teachers aren't going to know what to do. We're going to try to give them some help with ideas, lessons plans they can use, but really let teachers and principals blossom. And instead of telling teachers and kids what they can't do, let them decide what they feel safe doing and let them thrive in learning. What do you think? That's just too kumbaya, isn't it?
Well, I think it's some great ideas here, and there's a few practical things that interfere with that, but that doesn't mean that these ideas aren't possible. I mean, first, I agree with your daughter. Hybrid is not good for anybody. It's not good for the students who are sort of missing out of the live instruction at home. It's not good because the kids in person have a distracted teacher who's on a computer. We did hybrid in spring 2021 in New Haven, and I think almost everybody would agree we don't want to go back to hybrid, right? And because, like you said, it's hard to pay attention to person and online simultaneously. So I would agree there. So, we'll put that off. You weren't suggesting that, but I
Right.
confirm your daughter's take there. I think we did miss an opportunity as a society to release us ourselves from the constraints of 21st century education, which are, I'm still hearing from people in certain positions downtown that we have to do that test because it's tied to grant money. So, if they cared about student well-being, and they meaning policymakers at the federal and state level, if they cared about student well-being during a pandemic, I think they would do a moratorium on standardized tests. People who disagree with me would say, how else are we going to measure how the kids are doing? I would respond to that and say, there are many ways to measure how students are doing.
I'm also going to say
In
it's a
fact,
pandemic and the students are doing crummy. There's no way around it. I'm just wondering whether we can call these
exactly.
sort of like self-styled reformers who are really often have this corporate agenda on their rhetoric. If they said you got to break
Right,
through the
right.
rules,
That we
say
know
let
already
teachers
how students are doing, right?
let teachers go
They're witnessing
crazy
mass
with ideas.
deaths in their country. They've lost people in their family.
Yeah, and then there's the whole behavior problem with the kids being out of school, though, right? When they come back in, they've had less practice socializing. They have all this tension that's here either way. We talked about that at the end of last year with all the behavior problems. Is there a danger if we went remote that's going to come back to hit the teachers and the students again when they return? Or 2 weeks just isn't that long. It's not like being out for a year and a half.
I think the fact that people have said, we don't want this to be a long-term solution helps with that respect. I think we're going to need a lot of investment, to your point, in like youth-centered programs, outdoor education. I agree completely. Partnering with nonprofits in the parks. This is not, just being in school during a pandemic when anxiety is high is not going to magically teach children how to quote unquote behave or how to interact. It's going to be a long road back to rebuilding our community. And it's
Yeah.
not just the school's responsibility, but of course the school plays a huge part in this. It's, I think we have to reflect on what the purpose of school is. And if the purpose of school is to assess students when teachers already know how they're doing in some areas, then that's going to take away from meeting the whole child's needs, like Dr. Tracy talks about, meeting their psychological needs, meeting their social emotional, their physical needs, their nutritional needs, their ethical needs. if we're just laser focused on ongoing assessment so we can get grant money and federal funding, we're missing the forest for the trees for sure.
And here's
And
like a typical
long
day I could
term,
picture with this kind of environment. Let teachers be teachers. Let's say Leslie Blatteau shows up and she doesn't know who's going to be in school that day, and some other teacher's feeling scared, so that teacher gets half the students on remote. And Leslie said, "I know what I'll do with you today." You bring them a special snack, and you said, "Let me tell you about the time I was a punk rocker and I went to Estonia." And over the course of an hour, you get them interested in their teacher's story and learn on a map where Estonia was. Maybe find out about the former Soviet Union. Find out about the economics of having a rock band when you're not a big corporate rock band, and talk about making their own songs and stuff. Like, isn't that the kind of creative learning that could happen if you use something like a pandemic as an opportunity to let teachers be teachers? I don't know. Okay, never mind. That was rhetorical. Daryl
no,
Brackeen says, Leslie Blatteau is the best. So proud to see this new leadership in place who understands the direct voices of students, families, and teachers. And Harry Joe says, and how about give parents that want to leave the failing education system vouchers so they could take their kids elsewhere? Leslie, would you like to respond to that?
yeah, I think I don't know Harry well. I'll talk to him another time about the dangers of vouchers. I think if we're in a democratic republic here where our public institutions have to be maintained, kind of preserve and uphold the democratic republic that we have. And if we go the way of vouchers, it will ensure the erosion of our public institutions. So I would say rather than allowing vouchers, which have encouraged people to leave our public institutions, redouble our efforts to preserve our public institutions, so that they don't have this misnomer of failing, and rather they're nurtured, protected places, where all are welcome, not just the ones who are left behind.
Layla Crockett
So,
says, I love the
Harry, I would
idea.
love to talk with you more about vouchers.
Layla Crockett, I love the idea of a fluid approach to education during the pandemic, using it as an opportunity to bridge growing gaps with the community and prioritizing meeting the basic needs of students, teachers alike. Thanks, folks, for listening and commenting. You're listening to Dateline New Haven with Leslie Blatteau, the fired up new president of New Haven Federation of Teachers, who won a historic election that stepped into an unplanned historic moment with the virus and teaching. And part of what you stepped into is a national debate. This is one of those moments where if you're a local union president or superintendent or student, you're tagged with what people are arguing about nationally in our political discourse. And right now, Republicans have seized on this moment as a way to put Democrats on the defensive, that Democrats were hurt because they're affiliated with teachers unions and they were blamed for keeping schools closed too long in the first wave of the pandemic. When I would argue we didn't have vaccines and we didn't know as much as we know now, so sort of a different question. But it clearly helped steer the election in Virginia, and Republicans feel they're going to take power from the country over the country by successfully running against Democrats and teachers unions. And they're using this moment to say, let's use this moment again to capitalize. And Democrats are saying, whether it's Governor Ned Lamont who's running for election, Mayor Eric Adams in New York, they're coming back and saying our polling agrees with the Republicans' polling. So no matter what, not based on what's best for kids, we're going to make sure that we're saying schools stay open, Mayor Lori Lightfoot in Chicago, because we're going to lose if we're tagged as people who close schools, whatever the merits. How now? Also within the teachers union, there's been divisions. So Randy Weingarten is the president of American Federation of Teachers. So that's your president, right? She says that we learn from this and we do need schools open and we're going to do what it takes. We're going to fight hard for things Leslie's fighting for, like whether that's making sure there's enough testing, making sure there's enough masks and enough help for the teachers, enough subs being hired. But she's saying no matter what, we got to keep it open. The teachers union in Chicago said, we're just calling in sick, we're not going. And they had to shut down the schools. Who's right?
Well, let's be clear. They were locked out. They offered to do remote and Lori Lightfoot locked them out.
Right. So the remote, it's the remote versus in-person question.
Right.
So Randy Weingarten says it's got to be in person. Republicans say we're going to win by tarring you with that. Democrats are saying, oh no, we can't be for that. Other union leaders say that's what we need to do short term because people could get really sick and you can't really function the schools well. Who's right?
I think the Democrats need to shift the conversation if they want to win elections, and rather than making it focused on schools in person, schools not in person, what are we doing to help the millions of working families in this country? That's going to win them elections. What are they doing on minimum wage? What are they doing on voting rights? What are they doing to make sure that we can have more teachers in the classroom? What are we doing to stop the continued departure of people from urban classrooms? I think they're getting stuck in the Republicans' game, in my opinion. Shift the conversation, invest in working families, invest in our public schools, and that will help them win elections. That will get people to the polls who are otherwise feeling, disheartened and cynical. But they've got to return their focus to working families, and then they can beat the Republicans at their own game. It's not a conversation of in-person or remote. It's a conversation of Democrats doing what they're supposed to do to help working families. I think that Vermont's missing the boat on this one.
Leslie Blatteau, and you've run for mayor. You've been involved in the political arena. You're very familiar with how to phrase issues go to voters. Leslie Blatteau, tomorrow is the Black Wednesday, when teachers are going to wear black to school. Tell me what that's about and what's going to happen in New Haven.
So it was organized or initiated by our state union, the American Federation of Teachers Connecticut. And they're recognizing that we need to continue to raise awareness about ongoing needs for health and safety in our schools and our workplaces. So we're inviting all members of the school community, teachers, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, admin, to wear black, to remind our state leaders, our state legislators, that we're demanding proper mitigations to prevent the spread of COVID in our schools, which include masks, access to testing, improved access to vaccines in our school buildings. We're looking for, New Haven specifically, we're continuing to call on the state to give us clearer metrics on what would trigger a shift to remote, what would be a safe return to in-person. We haven't seen those metrics yet. But this is about raising awareness and showing our solidarity, across unions, to say, we care about our school communities, we care about the health and safety of our students, and we want to make sure that people are aware that we are advocating for these basic health and safety measures.
Sarah Levine says, yes. Kristen Host McFadden said the Democrats will lose, play the Republicans' games. I think she's been paying attention to a lot of elections in our lifetime, where I think that's definitely been the case. Leslie Blatteau, you're busy. I'll let you go. I want to ask a couple last questions. Fighting for Our Future, that was the name of your slate of 31 educators who won the leadership of the union. What about other unions? The New Haven teachers unions have kind of been an island. They don't really have a relationship, in my observation, with the Unite Here unions at Yale, right? Because everyone said the unions took over City Hall. I didn't see any teachers unions in mixed. I didn't see any policy about education. And there are separate unions for paraprofessionals, admins within the school. Have you folks developed links or have plans to develop links with both other education unions and other city unions at large?
It's on our to-do list for sure. To jump into this job during Omicron, as you've discussed, have really, 95% of our work is focused on doing these mitigation strategies and making sure that people are feeling safe and supported. But absolutely, we want to work closely with our paraprofessionals. Our schools would not function without them. I think we have a shared interest on some issues with the admin union. And of course, we want to connect with unions in New Haven to see where we can, find shared power and advocate for things that are in the best interest of the families who call New Haven home. It's
right.
But if they haven't heard from me, it's because we're a little busy.
The history of the New Haven Teachers Union, it had a militant history. Militant is a good word. 1970, I think it was. Teachers Union President Frank Rano went to prison. He was jailed because there was an order that you're not allowed to strike, and they defied it. When you look back on that period, do you think they took the right strategy, and what does that mean for the revival of union activity that you want to see under your leadership?
Yeah, I think there's a time to be militant when you want to raise awareness and fight for what is necessary. I think we also, we can't be militant for militant's sake. We also have to make sure that we have inroads to the community and real relationships with families, parents, and students. If we're going to move in a direction of more intense political advocacy. We can't do it alone. So we have to build and maintain trust with people in the community to move in a direction like that. And that's the work that we are interested in doing in the years to come. We have a 3-year term, and we are eager to build our relationships with folks so that teachers can do their job like we campaigned on. Learning conditions are working conditions are learning conditions. That means we're going to have to involve families in our work. But it's baby steps. We're not going to jump to that tomorrow. We have to make sure that teachers first and foremost feel supported in our schools, and then from there gradually figure out how we can build out into the community, do more of the work that we set out to do.
Leslie Blatteau, in addition to being president of New Haven Federation of Teachers, you're a mom, and
I
you
am.
have young kids, right?
I have one daughter. She was here with me at the office because they had a delay. So I brought her as my office assistant from 8 to 10, and then I brought her over to Hill Central once they opened up around 10:30, quarter to 11. But yeah, I have one 6-year-old daughter with my husband.
And you're
Jim.
also still teaching a class at Metro, right? What's that class, Metropolitan High School?
I'm still teaching my international issues class from now until June, senior seminar that I've worked really hard to develop over the last 6, 7, 8 years. And I wasn't quite ready to let that one go yet.
And what does that feel like from those 3 perspectives dealing with the Omicron surge, the variant?
You still there? I lost you, Paul.
How do those 3 different roles affect how you see the Omicron surge and what we're facing right now? I think we might have lost.
Yeah, I see it through my daughter's eyes when she tells me that, 7. I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yep. We're losing you a little bit.
Okay. I see it through my daughter's eyes when she. Okay. I'll give it one more try.
No, you know what?
I see it through my daughter's eyes. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I see it through my daughter's eyes when she tells me, that 7 or 8 kids are out from her class. And I recognize that there's first graders in New Haven who are either sick or feeling scared to go to school, their families. And that's, that worries me as a teacher. I trust my daughter's school, and I know that they're doing a great job taking care of kids and maintaining that normalcy that kids are looking for. My daughter's still happy to go to school every day, and I'm so grateful for that. As a teacher, I hear my adolescents' concerns. They're worried, they're sad, they're tired. They're working 40 hours a week in low-wage jobs, and our society is not set up to support working-class people, and in that, our seniors in high school have to work that much so their families can get by. They're exhausted, and it's again, where the Democrats could win is to do something about the fact that seniors in high school are working that much and trying to go to school, and the lip services that care about their social emotional well-being, that the federal policymakers, but let's deliver some real relief so that my seniors can actually enjoy their senior year of high school. And then as union president, I keep hearing from teachers that they're feeling pulled in 1,000 directions, and we need support so that they can do the jobs that they want to do.
Well, I'm glad we got you. I'm glad I got your connectivity back. That's a great ending. Leslie Blatteau, thanks for coming on WNHH's Dateline New Haven today. And thanks for being in New Haven. You're one of the great people in town who make this a better city and make it fun for me to be a reporter. So thanks for showing up today.
Paul. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and I appreciate you. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks to Harry Drost, the station manager, the best station manager in the business. Omicron hasn't kept him down any more than the rest of the pandemic. And we're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH FM, New Haven's home for community radio.